So today is part 2 of the new timer basics. We're going to be going a little bit deeper into the timer industry and more into timing as a whole. Now, this is a very superficial and cursory overview of what timing is and how to be a timer. So this is part 2 of the 4-part or more series. So just as a reminder, we said this last week, it's not intended for experienced or existing timers or to teach people how to be a timer. We do have tons of resources and assets at your disposal to help you on your way, but this will help for those of you that are onboarding new timers for your timing team and that has a support network in place. And again, we talked about that support network last week. I just wanted to remind you that even if you are an experienced timer and you don't have this in place, you need to begin working on it. So get your hardware contact, get your computer support, your network of timing friends, and then make sure you know who to contact on the RunSignup team if you do need help. So where we are in the series, last week we did the basic intro. Today we're diving a little bit more into the world of timing. Next week, we'll be talking briefly about race day scoring, and then the following week, we'll be going into race day scoring certification. So what our agenda is today is diving into the timing world, life, and what some basic concepts are, timing technology and what equipment you're expected to use, then into how chip timing works and the way different races are timed, result scoring categories, and then a couple of common problems. We're not going to go too deep into the common problems because as a new timer, there might be a lot more things that are common problems than are for an experienced timer. So we move directly into the life of a timer. You're thinking about jumping into timing, here's what to expect. I kind of try to think about what attributes would make a really good timer. And there's tons of words, there's tons of things we could say, but the people that make the best timers are detail oriented. They are problem solvers. They think on their feet, and they have a proficiency with computers and technology. It's not a mandatory thing, but you probably should enjoy sports a bit. I know some timers who probably enjoyed sports 40 years ago and haven't run a mile since they were in middle school on the track team or something like that. But it's a good idea because this is, if you're getting into this as an industry, it becomes your life. And I say this a lot to people. If you want to make a lot of money, there's a lot of other things you could be doing. If you want to have like a really interesting new high-paced environment, like yeah, this is it. Timing fits those bills. And so one other thing, and we just don't want to sugarcoat it about timing, and that is be able to deal with stressful situations and remaining calm in the chaos. One thing that I tell my timers when they come on is, and this is something that I think everyone should do, both as race directors and as timers. And I tell all my timers and all of my staff, don't run at an event because athletes or sponsors or whomever, when they see staff running, they think something's wrong. So I regularly tell my staff, I would rather start 30 seconds late and have you walk with purpose to me than sprint and have everybody staring at, oh no, something's wrong, staff are running. And that's the ability to remain calm in that chaos, because especially at race start, there is some sense of chaos there. So when will you need to work? This is the fun part. I put early in all caps because early doesn't really cover how early it really is. I mean, maybe you only time cross country, and so you're only working like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday afternoons and a handful of weekends. Most people in the timing industry, you're on site at 3:30, 4 a.m. setting up timing equipment. So it's very, very early, and we just don't want to don't want to lead you astray on that front. And your days off are normally Tuesday and Wednesday. However, everybody structures it differently. I mean, to be honest, the nice thing about timing is you work a full day from 4 a.m. until 10 a.m. and you're done at 10 a.m. and some of your friends are just getting up. So there's that as well. You're not necessarily losing your weekend, you're just losing your mornings. And if you're ever traveling on a Tuesday, Wednesday, usually flights and hotels are a lot cheaper if you ever wanted to take a vacation. So what does your workplace look like? I kind of chuckled when I made this one because I put a picture over there to the side. Your your workplace looks like a 10 by 10 tent in most situations. In others, timing outfits have a van or a trailer. Those are always nice because everything's set up in advance, or normally things are set up in advance. So the boot up process once you get on site takes a lot less time because you don't have to, pull out a printer. The printer's maybe already hooked up, plugged in, ready to go. You just have to power up a generator. In some cases, especially larger events, you might actually have a timing office or a timing building. And we're not talking about, your Monday, Thursday, Friday when you're like prepping to go out to an event. But some timing venues actually have timing offices or buildings for you. So, and a big takeaway here with all of this is to prepare as much as possible in advance. We deal with people and we deal with people's data. And that means that, every time there's human error, every time people touch things. And so with tons of people entering in their data online or handing out bibs or whatever, there's going to be lots of issues that come with that or changes that need to be addressed quickly. And so you kind of need to take a deep breath and own the fact that you can't expect perfection from the athlete. And on the flip side of that, as it says in parentheses, they're probably going to expect perfection from you. You don't have to get there immediately, meaning you might miss a read at the finish line. It's not the end of the day. It's not the end of the world. Everything's okay. You just have to be able to fix that issue before anybody else notices. So just that is a big takeaway as a timer. And so if you're in a stressful situation and you freeze, freezing fixes nothing. You always have to move forward. So always try to think of like the building blocks of your training and things like that when you get into those stressful situations or you have an issue. And again, when those issues arise, that is where your support network kicks in. So you have someone to call, text, email, or what have you to help you out. And I just sent this because it's really easy. Like I tell a lot of my friends, we have to be places at, 4:30, 5 a.m. And for me, as a timer, I have what is called my moment of Zen. And I do not get my moment of Zen Monday through Friday. It is on Saturdays and Sundays. And it is getting to a race site, whether it be 15, 5, or 60 minutes before anybody else. And you get just everything's quiet, everything's calm. You can feel the energy of everything about to happen. You're having your cup of coffee and you're kind of just visualizing what's going to happen there on site. And, it might be early, but you get a lot of these kind of pictures in this job. And sending somebody a picture like this and saying, hey, this is my office for the day, you're going to have a lot of jealous friends, maybe until you tell them what time you have to wake up. So we went over what is a timer on the last go. I just felt like it pertinent to bring this back up, and that's that timers are providing lots of services for event organizers, and they're doing a lot of different things or renting a lot of different things to events. They also are data managers and helping resolve issues. And a lot of timers also go into event production on their own events, but key service you're a problem solver for not only the participants but also the race director. And so you are expected to know in and out how the technology works. That doesn't mean day one you're expected to know everything top to bottom, but you do need to become a student of the sport and a student of the technology to be successful, because the more you learn about things, the lower your stress is going to be, and the more fun you're going to have doing it. Because once you get the hang of it, it is a lot of fun. You get to go to a lot of cool places. You get to see a lot of people, accomplish dreams, goals, whatever, PRs. It's a really neat place to sit for a job and watch people, experience all range of emotions. So timing technology, what kind of equipment will I be expected to use? Now, I could easily sit here and go through the list of hardware manufacturers and things like that, but we're taking this a little bit different direction. We're going to go kind of into basic concepts of timing, and then also into like actual physical things that you will likely end up touching as a timer. So how does it all work? You're going to end up, well, number one, nearly all timing devices come in some sort of Pelican case, and they're drilled out and repurposed for that hardware manufacturer. So here we have a Pelican 1500 case that likely, in if it gets purchased by a hardware manufacturer, it'll get rebranded and it'll gain about 20 pounds of batteries, CPU, readers, whatnot, GPS modules, everything. So to begin with, though, the athlete goes online and registers. They pay, they enter all their information, and this is important for timing because this is how we get their information. It's the same concept with paper forms. If you are a new timer, I will tell you right now, paper forms, not that fun. So it might seem easy having people sit at a table and fill things out, but I promise you, as a timer, your day gets a lot better if everything comes in electronically. So no matter what, if you have access to the back end of the registration data, or you have to request this from the race director or race owner, in nearly all circumstances, you need to have name, age, sex, and bib number. So those are usually, you want first name, last name, age, sex, bib number, and a lot of times you want first name, last name, date of birth, sex, bib number. You'll get a lot of other information a lot of times. So if you need waves, if you need divisions, if you have all the other special categories, you need those as well. Conversations that you need to have with your race director of what their expectations are before you go to the event. Then you have timing hardware. This is decoders, chips, tags, mats, antennas, loops, etc. And that could be cameras as well if you're doing athletics or cross country. A lot of people time with fat timing. So then you have middleware. So middleware, we're now getting into the things that you might not know as much about as a new timer. So middleware, and I don't think all hardware manufacturers of timing equipment have this, but middleware is a computer program which pulls the data off of your decoder and puts it into a usable format. So it could be a TCP/IP connection, or it could be a file format, like just a notepad, a TXT format. So the middleware is what connects to the proprietary decoder and pulls that information off. So now you have raw data and you can use it. Next is scoring software. So the scoring software is computer software that pulls data from the middleware. And usually that data that you want from the middleware is a chip code timestamp. And so the scoring software matches that to the participant record or the participant data with the help of a bib chip file. So that might be a lot of information there, but the things that we're learning about here, scoring software makes sense. Scoring software scores the race. You have to put a lot of filters and queries and things like that into it, depending on what you're using for scoring. If you're looking for scoring software, Race Day Scoring and Race Director are great options for you. And then we just talked about what middleware was. So then the final piece of that puzzle is the bib chip file. And that is, I always call it the Rosetta Stone of what chip goes to what bib. And I have another slide on that next. And then finally, you'll be touching a lot of results. So that could be awards, printed overall list, published online, text, email, however you're producing results for the event. So we went over the chip timing process last week. So just as a reminder, you're handing out the chip, it's being read by the hardware, it's being pulled into the scoring software, you're reviewing it as the timer, and then you're pushing it out in a result format. So just wanted a quick timeline of how that data goes from a chip on the back of the bib or a chip on the ankle to a result. So this is one thing I wanted to say before anything else, and that is, you could call it CISO or Kiko or Jijo or whatever, but it's basically saying garbage in, garbage out. If you get bad data, or if you put bad data into your scoring software, you are going to be incapable of producing good results, like completely incapable. For instance, if you import a CSV file that has no ages, you can't do age groups. You can do overall, but you can't do age groups. Now, you might not need ages if you're doing, say, cross country, and you have who's on what team and if they're JV or varsity. But in a normal open event, like just a normal 5K, if you do not have name, age, sex, and bib number, you're gonna have a really hard time of producing quality results. So how does that apply to you as the timer? You've got to confirm that the data pulled for pulling in is correct or as correct as it can be. And you need to work with your race director or your race owner to ensure you have good data. Now, a lot of platforms like RunSignup will give back-end timer level access so you can pull that data down yourself. Because again, what happens a lot of times is a race director or a race owner will say, oh, well, I only want to give you what you need. And so they'll go in and start manipulating the data. Problem there is they might not be very good at Excel. And so now they're doing sorts without expanding that sort across all columns. And so now, as soon as that happens one singular time, the data is absolute garbage. So it's really, really important that you get raw data and that you do the work to clean up that data set to be pulled in. As a timer, it makes me very, very nervous when I get data that has been cleaned. I don't mind if columns have been deleted, but data that's been updated or cleaned by the race director or race owner. And then secondary to that, you need to test your reports and scoring in advance to ensure you have a successful race day. So it's the same thing about garbage in, garbage out. If the processing piece in the middle of that garbage in, garbage out is broken, obviously whatever you put in, you could have the perfect data. If the processing piece in the middle, your reports, are bad, you're never going to get the right results. So what equipment will be used? So we already talked about timing hardware. So we have decoders, mats, antennas, loops, chips, tags, cameras. But there's a lot of other things that are going to be used on site, some of which you've probably messed with before. Some of them maybe you haven't. Generators or APCs, battery backups, power sources, whatever they might be. And generators might be a small like Honda inverter generator. It could be the generator built into a light tower that's providing light to the start finish area. You're going to be dealing with tents, tables, and chairs more than you probably care to play with. I will say, if you are going to a race site, and this is something that's overlooked by a lot of timers, if you're going to a race site and you've never set up a 10 by 10 tent, doing that at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning is not the easiest thing in the world. And so it's very, very helpful to talk with your team members to figure out, how to do this most appropriately and how they want you to set it up and tear it down, because some people leave the tent top on, some people take it off. I would say that taking it off lends for longer tent top, but at the same time, it does lead to one or two more steps in setup. Two-way radios or VHF radios, depending on where you are, or ham radios, you might be using all types of radios. So getting familiar with using your radio, holding the button on the side, letting it go when you're done. I know it seems silly, but if you're not used to doing it, it's very, very challenging to talk to people who do not know how to use two-way radios. You'll likely be using barricades, fencing, or cones at some point. All of this, and I honestly probably should have put in zip ties as well. If you've never used zip ties, go to Lowe's or Home Depot and buy you some and go bananas, because you will likely be using zip ties almost as much as your timing equipment. You'll also be dealing with trusses and inflatable arches or inflatable arches, and making sure you have the correct weights to hold things down, that everything's set up safely, straight, that everybody likes it, the way it looks. And then you will be doing a lot of networking. So both wired and wireless networking, whether that be setting up a mesh network or something as simple as just plugging your decoder with a Cat5 cable into the back of your computer, and knowing how to set, a static IP address if you need to. And then it goes without saying, you're going to have a computer. And with that computer, you're going to really need to know how to use Excel, and you'll need to know how to save as a CSV. You'll likely be using Notepad some. You'll be using your middleware, scoring software, the internet to double check your results pushed online, things like that. So how does chip timing work and the different ways that races are timed? Just as a reminder, the chips work as they cross transponders. It pulls into the decoder, and then that is then pulled off of the decoder by the middleware, and the middleware dumps it into either a file or a TCP/IP connection, which can be pulled into your scoring software. So different ways that races can be timed. So gun time versus chip time. And gun and clock are the same thing. So gun time means that the time starts when the gun, horn, or cannon sounds. This can be for mass start or wave starts. You can do individual time trial with gun starts. I did that for years with triathlon. It is incredibly stressful because you cannot mess up. You have to know exactly when every single person starts. So gun time is really only used for mass starts and wave starts. And it's usually used on like super, super wide areas, or championships, where you want to have the first place person that crosses the finish line be the winner. So secondary to that, you have chip time. Chip time can be used for mass starts, wave starts, time trial starts, a bunch of different ways. So chip time is your delta in timing. It's when you have to have a timing mat wherever your starting location is. It can be the same as your finish, but the time starts when the chip is read across the starting mat, and it ends, both the gun and chip time obviously end when they hit the finish line or a split point. So the difference in between, you can have gun time and chip time running at the same time. The chip time will always be the same or faster than gun time. So you never want, if ever your chip times are slower than your gun time, then something's gone wrong for the day. So other ways that races are scored are individual versus relay versus team. So individual is one person racing solo against others. This is kind of what you think of when you think about, going to your local 5K. A relay, a team passes a chip or baton to complete a total distance. They only have one time. In theory, they could have multiple chips, and each chip would only be recorded for the segment that the person does. So the easiest way I relate this is like a triathlon relay, where you have one person that swims, one person that bikes, and one person that runs, and they pass that chip across at the transition area. When they're done swimming, they run up to the biker and hand them the chip. The biker goes. So in theory, the chip itself is treated just like an individual, but there's multiple people using it. Same goes with a baton. A lot of people use batons or slap bracelets for like ultra relays, where you have maybe like a 200-mile relay, and one person runs at a time, 5 miles at a time, and so that's the same basic concept. Is that one time, that one data unit is moving by itself, whether it be, you know, an individual or a relay team member running. So team, on the other hand, each individual completes total distance, and then you use a total or average times, or any other way you want to score for scoring purposes. There's a lot of different times. You could have individual results within that, but you have one average, or one, however you're scoring it. The easy way to think about this is like a corporate run, where you say whoever's the fastest average, you know, team, or the top 10 people, or, you know, whatever you want to do. Cross country is also looked at this way. So you can have a winner of the cross country event, but then you also have a team category as well. So then you also have distance versus duration. Distance is whoever's the fastest for distance, and I put X because it can be any distance. So this is like, say, a 5K. Who finished first in the 5K? And this is your normal racing format that people are used to. Duration is how far did you go during the time allowed. This could be 1 hour. You know, if you follow cycling, there's a 1 hour record on the velodrome. A lot of people do that do trail races do 24-hour lap races, and they can sleep if they want to, but they just have to enter the course where they exited the course. And so at the end of the day, it's who completed the farthest distance. And a lot of times the lap races are set this way. So results and scoring categories. So we have overall, and some of these will be very, very normal, and you'll see what I mean. But like overall, top 3 overall, that's easy button. Masters and grandmasters, etc. So these are also overall categories, but there's a priority, and this is where you get into the more complicated and intricate parts of timing. Not every race has masters, so if you just have overall top 3 in age groups, cool. Usually, if it's not like a state or national championship, that overall athlete is pulled out of their age group. If it is a state or national championship, they're left in their age group, and it's called double dipping. And so what that means is they're able to win overall, like 5K national championship, but then they're also their age group national champion. So they don't want to be in those situations. You don't want to disallow that person from winning their age group too. Most races they pull out. So if somebody wins 2nd place overall, they don't place in their age group. You will get questions from athletes who won overall and came up and got their 3rd place overall award. Hey, why didn't I win my age group? And you will need to then explain what double dipping is, and what you need to do, like that, look, you won this, and because of that, you're pulled out of your age group. It's more prestigious to win overall than it is to win your age group. Same goes for masters and grandmasters. So masters is normally 40 and above. In some races, it's 40 to 50. Some races have grandmasters, great grandmasters, etc. Those kind of, the more you put those in, the more I feel like you're kind of just adding additional age groups. But these overall categories are normally determined by gun time. And that's because a lot of times you'll have a photographer from like the newspaper will come out, and they'll take a picture of that first person crossing the line, and they'll leave before the end of the race. They don't stick around, and they'll publish that photo saying here, and they'll look at your results and they'll say, well, whatever, this is, the bib numbers don't match, but I'm going to publish this photo anyway. And it's not going to make sense. So a lot of times for overall, you score it by gun time, because it makes sense to everyone who's there. And you do need to let the athletes know, hey, we're scoring overall awards by gun time. If you think you're going to win overall top 3, move to the front, because your time starts for those overall categories with the gun. Now, you also have division and category results. such as Novice, Clydesdale, Athena, Elite, Collegiate. There's tons more. That, you know, the 9/11 races just happened, and there's a lot of first responder categories there. So these do need to be set up in advance. This is one of those data sets that you do need to know, and you do need to be asking this question in advance. You know, are you racing age group, or what division are you racing in? And so you need to know this so you can score these people in the appropriate category. Normally you're pulling these people out and they're racing, like all novices are racing against other novices. They're not racing against their age group. Same with all the other categories. So then you have age group, which kind of makes sense. Sometimes the age groups are the kind of the normalized age groups are 5-year and 10-year age groups. Normally age groups start at 10. It'll be like 10 to 14 or 10 to 19. Sometimes you do 5-year age groups on the younger people and 10-year above. So it might be 9 and under, 10 to 14, 15 to 19, 20 to 29, and so on and so forth, just because, there's so many athletic or muscular changes through puberty there that, a 19-year-old racing against an 11-year-old is usually not fair. And then in terms of relay and team, we already talked about those results and scoring categories. But then you also have preem or intermediate categories, and those are like king of the mountains, or the fastest. Let's take a triathlon: the fastest swimmer, the fastest biker, the fastest runner. Or you could set up. It's like a race within a race. That whoever's mile 6 in a half marathon was the fastest. You could have a random category for that. Just something fun to put in there, but it is something that you need to be aware of as you're scoring. So some common issues are misreads. Misreads could happen from a ton of different things. It could be, malfunction of your equipment. Somebody didn't wear their bib. Water is a big factor there. Somebody's arm over top of their bib to stop their watch. People wearing their bib on top of their head and you're using ground antennas, or people leaning over and having the bib on their stomach and you're using overhead antennas. All of that can cause issues. Incorrect data is kind of the misreads, and incorrect data are the number 1 and number 2 issues that you're really going to experience on site. And so the incorrect data is, my wife and I, swapped bibs, and I accidentally won the overall female category. So now you have to do a bib swap. Or, I signed up as a female and I'm a male, or I didn't know my kid's birthday. So and you'd be surprised at how normal these things are, but they are quite normal. So just being able to quickly update athlete info and quickly add in misreads as need be. So obviously with athlete info, they're going to tell you, so you can go in and do that. With misreads, at least in the finish line, having a backup of some sort, even if it's a volunteer with a piece of paper writing down the bibs as fast as they possibly can in order, you can go back and get people in order and add those in as need be. A lot of people use backup cameras or like finish links to back up, or use primary, either one. So having a backup is a really, really good idea. Having a backup of everything as a timer is a good idea, because you can't go to Staples halfway through a 5K. You need an additional printer cord in case somebody puts the chair down and cuts the printer cable. You need an additional power cord in case, I don't know, it gets same kind of thing, it gets cut. You need additional everything. So and that goes to power interruption. That's another big issue. With link stuff, you do need a continuous power supply. A lot of people are using inverter generators plus battery backups inside, like an APC kind of thing. But power interruption can can cause issues with electromagnetic interference, which could block out reads on your decoders. Computer updates. If you're a new timer, you've probably not experienced this, but most people that have been timing for a while will start choking up, and their blood pressure will start boiling with the computer updates. And so you do need to make sure that everything's updated well in advance, so you don't open your computer for the first time in 3 weeks at the race site and you have updates that just start right after the race starts. And if you've never done a Windows update, they can take a while. Same thing goes with your software updates, like making sure you're on the newest version of all the software, middleware, everything else, and you're good to go. And then I put overheating equipment. That could be from a number of different reasons, whether it be internal or external, but it is just something that you do experience on site. For me to go through all issues that you might experience would take a year. But the reality is most things that you're going to experience are misreads and incorrect data, both of which are very, very fixable. And the sign of a good timer is fixing those before anybody ever notices that it was a problem to begin with. So that wraps everything up for the day, and I don't know if there were any questions. I think we were supposed to take 30 minutes, and I ran over by 10. So hopefully you found that informative. And if you do have any other race day product questions, make sure you reach out to info@runsignup.com. And it looks like that dot's in the wrong spot, so don't copy and paste that. But yeah, we do appreciate you guys joining us. And please join us next week for an intro to race day scoring. I'll be on with Matt Avery, and we will go through the very, very basics of timing and scoring with race day scoring, and then that will lead us into the following week of certification in race day scoring. So thanks so much, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.